Welcome to this strategy video for Axis and Allies Spring 1942 2nd edition. In this video we'll be covering Japanese strategy, in particular how to counter intelligent defenders. So, in my opinion, the best early game goal for Japan is to conquer India, because you have an early military advantage against the British in India. Now, the first order of business is that we need an industrial complex in mainland Asia, because the Japanese don't have one. The only one you have here is on the home islands, and that's going to require transports to use, which we're still going to do. So what we're going to do is spend 30 IPCs on an industrial complex, 2 transports, and then we're going to bank the 1 remaining IPC. And that's it for purchases. Now, we'll get into combat moves. So, first things first, we'll notice that the British were smart and took out our destroyer and our transport with that cruiser. So that's going to slow us down a bit. So we're going to want to kill that, and we're not going to want to lose anything further to it because we've already lost more than we'd like. So what we're going to do is take this battleship from down here and attack. We're going to take the aircraft carrier and attack. We're going to take this aircraft carrier and attack. Now, just coming in with this, 2 aircraft carriers and a battleship, you've got 1 free wound on the battleship to where it won't sink, and the cruiser has a 50-50 chance of hitting you, right? So with this setup, you've got a 76.85% chance of rolling a hit, and that'll kill it. Now, if you bring in this destroyer, you'll have an 84.57% chance of scoring a hit. If you bring in this cruiser, you'll have an 88.43% chance of getting a hit. And if you bring in the cruiser and the destroyer, it goes up to 92.28. We're just going to bring in the destroyer because I like to have just the extra security in case I roll really bad and I have to lose a ship. But hopefully we won't miss. And with this 84.57% chance of scoring a hit, we'll take out the cruiser no problem. And you'll see why we're not taking in everything later in the video during the non-combat moves. So that's how you're going to take out this cruiser. And I forgot to mention that this is actually going to be an amphibious assault, which means it gets resolved first. So we have this 1 transport here remaining, since we lost the other one. We're just going to load it with the tank and the artillery. And there's a slight corridor right here where it actually connects to Yunnan, so this transport is going to take the tank and artillery from Japan and declare an amphibious assault into Yunnan. Now the battleship won't get to bombard because he fought the cruiser. Okay, so that's not all we're going to send in there though. We're also going to send in from Kwangtung the infantry and the artillery. And then furthermore, we're going to send in infantry and artillery from French Indochina into Yunnan. So we're going to have a nice big fight going on there. And that is it for that fight. So this is a pretty good set of odds right here. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. We're going to take this fighter from Japan, actually. So that's going to move 1, 2, 3. 3 from Japan into Yunnan. So what that is going to do is give you a 93.06% chance to score 2 hits. So you're probably going to annihilate these guys in 1 round. And they have about a 55% chance of scoring 1 hit against you. So you'll probably lose an infantry in this fight. Sorry, I forgot this guy from that aircraft carrier is also going to move 1, 2, 3 into Yunnan. And that gives you the odds I said before in that fight. So now what we're going to do is we've got this 1 guy in Burma. So we're going to take this man from French Indochina, move him in there. And we're going to take this fighter and the 2 fighters from down here from that aircraft carrier, move 1, 2 in there. So now what this is going to do is give us an 89.58% chance of scoring 1 hit, which should be fine. So even if we get really unlucky and this guy scores a hit too, we're still going to lose just the infantry, and the fighter should be all right. So that's fine there. Okay, so now for the rest of it. So from Kiangsu, we're going to move into Anhui with all 4 of these guys. We're going to take this fighter from Manchuria, 1. We're going to take the bomber from Japan, 1, 2, 3. So that gives him options. He moved 3 here, which means he could land back in Japan, or he could land 4, 5, 6 in French Indochina, Thailand, which we're probably going to do with him. And we'll see what happens there later. Okay, and this right here is going to give you a 61.42% chance of scoring 2 hits. So you're probably going to knock out both of those guys at once. And you'll have a 91.96% chance of scoring 1 hit. Alright, now let's just go ahead and resolve these battles. So in Burma, you probably killed this guy, and no problem, you didn't lose anything. In Yunnan, you probably lost an infantry and killed these 2 Americans. Same for in Anhui, you probably lost an infantry and you killed both of these guys. And we already took away the cruiser. And that's it for your combat in this turn. We're not going to attack the USSR because these guys are pretty meaty and there's no reason really to go after them, because if they attack you, you actually have the odds in your favor, 3 against 5 on defense with infantry. So those guys are probably going to just sit there. Alternatively, you could use your air power to just annihilate them if you're trying to get into the northern territories here, but those aren't really of much concern. We would try to attack this and take out that American fighter, but the Russians and the Britons reinforced it, so we can't do that this turn. So we're just mounting an invasion on India at this point by taking all the surrounding area. And then next turn we'll go after that and start getting forces here close to India to go for that final assault. So that's it for combat. Alright, so now for non-combat moves. Let's go ahead and land these fighters. So every single fighter can actually land in French Indochina or in your aircraft carriers. So what we're going to do is we're going to land 4 of them on the carriers. Play the little balancing game. Alright. Then we're going to land the other 2 in French Indochina, and they'll be safe there. There's nothing the British can really do to attack you there because they don't... this fighter could move 1, 2, 3, 4 and land back in Britain, but he's probably not going to attack you alone. Same here, this fighter could move 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's not enough. So the only thing in range is this 1 fighter, and you don't really have to concern yourself with that. So your fighters will be safe. Now the bomber could land back in Japan, but I'm going to land him 1, 2, 3, also in French Indochina, Thailand, because we're going to want to bomb that factory strategically, right? This can only produce 3 units at a time, and if we just hammer it, they're not going to be able to build up. Now, this bomber is also still in range, say 1, 2, 3, 4. He can hit here or here 4, and then 5, 6, land in Okinawa or Caroline Islands if he needs to. So he's still within range of the Pacific. Also, we're going to move this guy from Malaya up to protect these fighters even further. So now this lone British fighter or that American's definitely not coming after us, right? Because that would just be crazy to try and assault this. As far as other non-combat moves go, we're going to take the cruiser, put it here. We're going to take the sub, also put it here. Take the battleship, also put it here. So if you hadn't taken the destroyer with you into this fight, you would have taken it to this sea zone as well. And the reason we're doing this and not clumping the whole fleet together is because this sea zone is pretty much adjacent with the same ones as this one. If you notice, these can both go 1, 2 to India or go back to Japan, and that's what we want to be able to do. The reason we want some ships here is because if we all go back into this sea zone back here, that leaves the Americans with the capability to start landing on some of these islands if they want, and then our ships won't be in range, right? Because it'll be 1, 2, 1, 2. We could get to Okinawa, Iwo Jima, but they'd be able to take Wake or the Solomon Islands, and we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So if you want to protect the Solomons and Wake Island, you're going to want to keep a fleet here in range of those 2, because what you're going to do, notice that their whole fleet can actually hit 1, 2 Solomons or 1, 2 Wake, including all these guys in the fighter, right? And that's a lot of stuff. But if you send in these 3 ships, which are pretty heavy hitters, you've got a battleship and a cruiser, that's not quite enough. But you can also send in the fighters, right? Because they can move 1, 2, 3, or same here, and then land back on your aircraft carriers, because the aircraft carriers can actually reach these adjacent areas. So in order to defend your eastern territories, you're going to keep a few ships right there, and your fighters are all landed on the aircraft carriers ready to snap out at any Americans that try to come for your territory. And of course, you've also got the bomber available if you want to use it. So that is why we're going to set things up that way. All right, so now we're going to get into the place units phase. We're not going to move these guys. It'd be nice to get them more into the fight, but like I said, we don't want them to just steamroll through our territory, so we're going to leave them there. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and place units. So we're going to place the industrial complex right here. So this can produce 2. That's not a ton, but if you're producing tanks, they can move 2 into India, and you already have a good bit of infantry and artillery on the continent. So that's going to be very useful. And then the 2 transports. Now this is important. You moved out of this sea zone, so you do not want to build them here, because if you do, you'll notice that no American ships are in range. However, the fighters are. So if this aircraft carrier moves here, then the fighter, a fighter or 2 fighters will be able to just eat that up and automatically kill it. They'll lose the aircraft carrier because you're going to destroy it, but it's going to set you way back. So you want to make sure you build them back here. That way the Americans can't hit them. There's nothing the Soviets have in range, and there's nothing that the Americans have in range of that. And next turn, you're going to build more infantry on Japan, because we're going to unload some of these, all of them actually, and you're not going to want to leave Japan totally empty, right? So we're probably not going to build more transports than this, because we have a third one right here, and we have an artillery we can pick up off of the Philippines. And this should serve us well, because this factory is going to be producing probably mostly tanks and not infantry, because I already have that. You can also build fighters here if you need to, if you start losing some fighters in combat, because you're going to be trying to overwhelm this. And remember to be strategically bombing it. Alright, so that's pretty much it for Japan. There's not really a whole lot to talk about in turn 1. They can be kind of confusing to play if you don't really know what you're doing, because you kind of have a lot of units just spread all over the board, and it's not really clear if you're supposed to go after the Americans or not. So what you really want to do in this version especially is just take out India. Once you do that, that's going to really cripple the Allies, because you're going to have a factory here now right against the Russians, and the British won't be here to buffer you. So that'll really allow you to take out Moscow, because the Japanese actually start really close to it in this game. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and next time we'll get to the United States. Have a good day.